Joining me now, New York Congressman Chris Collins, one of the 227 Republicans who voted yes on this bill. Congressman, congratulations. This is a huge win for Republicans. For you, you're actually in the minority in the state of New York. 5 of your Republican colleagues voted no on this legislation. What are they missing here?
Well, Stephanie, it's a big win for America. It's a big win for our children and grandchildren to finally get this economy moving so they can participate in a growing economy and live the American dream. But it's also for 98% of my constituents in New York 27, Western New York, near Buffalo. They're going to get anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 more in take-home pay next year because of the significant changes, doubling of the child tax credit to $2,000, almost a double in the standard family deduction from $12,700 to $24,000. They're going to see $100 to $150 a month more in their take-home pay. And you know what? They're going to spend it. They're going to spend it on Main Street. They're going to go to dinner. They're going to do what they do. It's going to multiply through the economy. And then you throw on top of that our 21% corporate tax rate, which finally makes us competitive around the world.
They will until 2025 when the individual cuts expire. Why did 5 Republicans in your state not agree with you? That pitch you just made is a good one.
Well, first of all, the sunset is that was a parliamentarian rule in the Senate. And while technically the individual cuts would expire in 2025, I'm confident a future Congress will be pushing them forward. So you have to stay tuned on that. We're good for 8 years. The corporate rates are locked in. I'm a little confused, frankly, about my fellow New Yorkers because, like I said, 98% of my constituents are going to get a tax cut. I believe the same is true, certainly outside of the city. And while there may be some millionaires and billionaires in Long Island that are losing significant state and local tax deductions, this tax bill was not about the folks making $2 million a year living in a $5 million house. That was not what this was about.
There are millionaires and billionaires right here in New York getting truly hooked up because carried interest is still in this bill. Steve Schwartzman, a close ally of the president, clocked, I want to say, $400 million this year. President Trump, Steve Mnuchin, Gary Cohn on the campaign trail and since in office said carried interest will without a doubt be taken out. It's one of the things that hurt Mitt Romney when he was running because he came from the private equity industry. Carried interest is still in there. So
well,
private equity,
hold on,
sir. So you changed it for hedge fund managers, not for private equity, the guys who truly benefit from it. And guess what? They always have a longer than 3-year holding period. They buy companies just like real estate firms do. So they're being taxed higher at a higher rate, like it's investment income, than New York City firefighters and police officers. Just this morning with Axios, Gary Cohn said the White House tried 25 times to get carried interest taken out, and the Hill fought it. By the Hill fighting it, that means that there are special interest groups pushing the buttons. Who supports, make the argument for me why carried interest should be in there? Because the White House just said, we wanted it out. Congress wants it in.
Oh, I can't make that argument. I advocated strongly to remove the carried interest.
Then who wanted it in? You voted yes.
Well, it came through our Ways and Means Committee. That's where our tax bill was debated and changed. All I can say is we can agree to disagree on things, and I disagreed with keeping that in there. And it did stay, but this is a great bill. So if it's you can't ever let perfect be the enemy of good. It's 99% good. I wish the individual rates were permanent. I wish carry interest was gone, but that doesn't change the fact that the business community is going to rock and roll, and 95%, 98% of my constituents are going to have an extra $100 to $150 every single month to spend, and they will spend it, and that's going to trickle through the economy.
Well, you yourself, you're a small businessman. Are you going to raise wages for your employees when you get your tax cut?
We just gave significant raises in one of the companies I've involved in 2 weeks ago because, frankly, what's happening with a strong economy, there's more demand for workers. And as there's more demand, you're going to have to, increase wages to keep your significant workers. In my biotechnology company, yes, we had substantial raises across the board for all 114 employees 2 weeks ago.
But without the border adjustment tax, the fact that we have a global workforce we're still going to be able to have cheap labor overseas. So there's not really a reason to bring those jobs back. And corporate America isn't being forced to. You didn't do anything to the payroll tax here. Just because corporations are going to have more money, Mike Bloomberg, probably New York's most successful businessman, says it's absolute fantasy to believe that companies are going to start paying their employees more money.
Well, I agree with you on the bat. I'm a big supporter of the border adjustment tax. I was disappointed when that didn't get in. That would have put a 20% effective tariff on goods being made overseas. I thought that was an absolutely brilliant move. It didn't make it in. But it's now going to be up to our Commerce Department to negotiate trade deals or put tariffs in place against China and Mexico, not Europe. Europe, Canada, and the like, they pay similar wages. But the only way we're going to get our manufacturing jobs back from Mexico and China is to put significant tariffs against products made in those countries. We have to put America first, and whether it's 20%, which is what a bat would have been, or even 30%. People are right. If you're paying $4 an hour in Mexico, you're not going to pay $30 an hour in the U.S. We've got to level the playing field with China and Mexico with significant tariffs to encourage these companies to bring the jobs back.
We should point out that the trade deficit between the United States and China has only increased in the last 10 months. I do want to ask, this bill is supposed to spike the economy that is slowly but steadily growing. If it doesn't pay for itself, because in paying for itself, there's the assumption that there's going to be welfare reform, there's going to be infrastructure spending. If it doesn't pay for itself and there have to be cuts, are there going to be changes to entitlements?
Well, right now, the biggest change that we're looking at in the entitlement world is for able-bodied adults who don't have minor children at home to get out and get a job. There's plenty of jobs. Right now, there's more jobs than there are people willing to fill it. So when you're looking at some of the benefits able-bodied adults are getting without minor children at home, that's going to be a big focus we have, and I think 98% of Americans would agree those people should not be sitting on the steps. They should be out working. They may not love the job, they may not love the hours, they may not love the pay, but they need to get out and get a job. Does
that mean we should expect cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security?
No. We are
then
looking
how are you
really.
Do it?
Well, a growing economy at 3 to 3.5% will double our economy in 20 years to $40 trillion. It's been growing at 1.5% for 8 years under Barack Obama, which is the whole reason we ended up with $10 trillion of extra debt.
Sir, it was at 3% 14 times during that period.
Excuse me?
It was at 3% at 14 different points during that period.
Well, I guess, again, we can agree to disagree, but we ended up adding $10 trillion to our nation's debt over those 8 years.
And what do you think is going to happen to our nation's debt with this tax bill? You don't think we're going to add to our debt?
Well, let's say for right now it added $1 trillion over 10 years. That's less than Obama did every year of his presidency.
You do remember that President Obama was elected at the height of the financial crisis, when we were in a housing disaster in this country.
Right, and we had the worst economic recovery following a major recession in the history of economics.
Which was a steady climb for 8 years.
Well, I don't know that it does any of us any good to relitigate the deplorable 8 years of Barack Obama. All we're saying is time will tell. Only time will tell what happens to the economy. You're already seeing the stock market reacting in a positive way. And in New York State, where we have to have, by Constitution, a fully funded state pension plan, this could reduce the pension burden on all of our cities, towns, villages, and counties in New York, potentially even eliminating the need for those municipalities to make pension payments in the near future, because the soaring stock market will make sure that the pension fund in New York is fully funded. That's a consequence I certainly haven't heard our governor talk about, but that would be another major benefit of our tax plan.
That is a great point. We have to remember pensions, 401ks, they are affected in a very positive way by the stock market. Quick, before we go, how about value of homes? Are you concerned at all in New York State about home values? Because some are concerned that with mortgage deductions changing, it could impact house values.
Well, that's crybaby Governor Cuomo, who is bringing up some of the issues which mostly are related to his tax and spend policies in Albany. No, I am not concerned. People are buying houses because they want to buy a house, live in a certain neighborhood, have their kids go to a certain school district. But we do need to reduce our tax burden in New York, which is double that of Florida per person. And there's no reason we shouldn't be, and our governor and the Assembly and Senate should be looking at ways to reduce the tax burden, especially on homeowners in New York. But, Stephanie, I'm not worried that somehow there's going to be a major reduction in home values when that's just not, I believe, going to happen.
All right. Thanks so much for joining me, and congratulations.
Good to be with you.
Huge win.